everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our live Kavli chat. I'm Brooke Smith, the Director of Science and Society here at the Kavli Foundation, and I'm joined by Xinnan Du, who is the Outreach and Engagement Manager at the Kavli Institute for Particle Astrophysics and Cosmology, at Stanford. Xinnan has her PhD from UCLA, where she also did her master's, and a bachelor's degree in astronomy and astrophysics from Nanjing University. During her PhD, she studied properties of the gas in and around distant galaxies. And she's also an American Astronomical Society Astronomy Ambassador. I'm really excited to talk to Xinnan today as the Outreach and Engagement Manager at one of our Kavli Institutes. It's a pretty special position to be working at that interface of science and society around the science that the Kavli Foundation funds in basic science. And so we're here to get to know Xinnan a little bit and hear about her experience in her position. Welcome, Xinnan.
Thank you very much for that very nice intro.
Yeah. Well, we are excited to hear about, I'd love to hear about you first. What is your career path? How does one become an outreach and engagement manager for a place like the Kavli Institute there at Stanford?
Wow, it's I would say it's actually quite a long story. So I was in grad school at UCLA, basically just as a regular graduate student. One day I was actually pulled into an outreach event because that was a bilingual presentation at an elementary school, and they were looking for someone who could speak both English and Mandarin. So there were not a lot of people who were able to do that. I was like, okay, I will just volunteer. And one thing led to another. I felt, immensely accomplished even after that very brief interaction with elementary students. So I started leading outreach programs at UCLA. So there was a graduate student-led program called Astronomy Live, and I served as the coordinator for a few years. By the time I was graduating, I had already made a decision that I was just going to pursue a career in outreach and public engagement, and not necessarily in research. But at that time, I think, like positions or like a career path in this field was still not really a thing. It was very rare. So when I was looking for jobs, it was actually not very successful. I applied for all different kinds of jobs, including a lot of like program managers or even like more on the formal education side, and I didn't get any. But through a very, I was lucky that there was a personal connection at UC Riverside, where I was very fortunate to, not only continue doing a little bit of research, but also really expand on my capabilities and a passion for outreach. So I was almost doing 50-50% research and outreach. And at the end of my contract there, I was like, okay, well, let me try again for a full-time outreach position, and hopefully there's something there for me this time. And it was still a little bit tough. My job search was almost 2 years, continuously until I got this current position at KaiPak at Stanford, which I consider myself almost, the luckiest person in the world because this is really a dream job. So I would say, it's not been a straight line, but I enjoy, exploring different things along my way.
I want to talk a little bit about the job there at KaiPak at Stanford. Before I do, just getting to your story about your career path and where you ended up and how you got there. I often talk to a lot of folks who have a meandering career path to public outreach or engagement. Sometimes the story has an element of something you shared, which was you were doing your PhD and then decided to do this instead. And I'm just wondering if you can talk about that a little bit, because that's something I hear a little bit about from folks. Was that a difficult decision to leave the research track you're on to move into engagement? Was it easy? Can you provide just a little bit more information and color about that really pivotal point in your own career track?
Of course, yeah. I would say the decision was not a very easy one to make because I had already known what a research-oriented career path would look like. So I knew where I was headed. But then at the same time, I felt, like I was more passionate about outreach. However, the career prospect was not that clear. I didn't know, what jobs were out there, whether people were actually hiring full-time outreach people, and what kind of connections that I would have to make to get there. And there were also like a lot of other kinds of like very similar and relevant jobs related to, for example, communications, which I don't necessarily have the skill set for. So it was actually almost like exploratory path where I would have to be like, okay, before I make a final decision, I probably need to get myself out there a little bit more, starting to network, talking to people who have a job that I would like to take ideally, and see what are some of the things I'm missing and where I am headed to.
Mm-hmm. What were those things that you were missing that you feel like you beefed up outside of your traditional academic track?
So part of that is writing, not scientific writing, but science writing for a broader audience. Part of that also related is maybe some research experience in education research, or at least your knowledge of the latest trends of education research, which I was not really plugged into. And some other things, including best practices in informal education, some of the pedagogical trainings, which I had to personally sought for, but it was not actually included as part of the a regular graduate program in astrophysics.
Yeah. Okay, I'd love to hear about your job at KaiPak. So you are the Outreach and Engagement Manager. What does that mean? What is your job description?
Great question. That was actually one of my questions when I was applying for this job. So outreach is basically public engagement. So I am leading the effort for all the public-facing educational events, and we have all different kinds of events offered to the public. For example, public lectures, which we actually did, yes, this one, a three-part public lecture series on the James Webb Space Telescope last fall. So this is one example where I am organizing this kind of event. And there are also other programs and opportunities for different audiences. For example, high school girls, where we have a summer virtual workshop for 3 weeks, just for them to learn about Python programming, physics, and astronomy. And we recently also rolled out a Spanish-only outreach initiative, catering to the local Spanish-speaking groups. And the engagement part is more towards student engagement, training of early career scientists. So I'm leading the effort to select and recruit summer students from external institutions to work at Stanford. And this year, very exciting, we're also rolling out a KaiPak Post-Baccalaureate Research Fellowship, where we bring in college graduates to do 1-year research at KaiPak, and hoping to help them build their application profile. So eventually, after this program, they will be able to be admitted to top PhD programs in physics and astrophysics.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you do a number of different kinds of things. There's the post-bac program, the lectures, I know you have open houses. What do you consider, you and Dr. Risa Wexler, who's the director of the Kavli Institute there, when you and Risa Wexler get together and talk about this work, what do you feel like, we've had a great year, we were really successful in engaging the public, because why? What are some of the things you look for that make you feel like you've achieved some of the goals that you have?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And this is why I think, the evaluators we have been working with have been so helpful. So initially when I stepped into this role, at the very beginning, we didn't really have an established, evaluation plan. But we're currently working with the evaluators to really refine and finalize our strategic plan in public engagement, where the goals, like behavior goals, were synthesized and extracted from discussions with the different groups of CAIPAC scientists and also outreach projects, volunteers. So, for example, we had, we are hoping that K through 12 students would consider a STEM-related career. We hope that the public would trust our scientists more or turn to scientists whenever they make big decisions. So those are some of the goals, and the evaluation team is helping us to actually map all those goals into, actionable items, and sometimes little tweaks in the existing programs would actually make a very big difference. And their expertise has also been really helpful in terms of, designing the specific questions where, we could do, if not one-on-one, then, like multiple to one mapping of the goals and, what they said to the survey response. So those are some of the the evaluation progress that we have been making, and we're definitely looking forward to officializing this strategic plan in the spring, and encourage the entire CAIPAC community to adopt that when doing outreach.
Yeah, this is something that for folks who are joining us and listening in to about this, that Xinnan and I have talked about, in the foundation and the institute been working on collectively, is how to ensure you're not just doing an engagement program, but you're evaluating it, just in terms of looking at your own, are we achieving our goals? Are we not? How can we tweak? So it's meant to be like a reflective practice. And I know in engagement and outreach, evaluation is often something that is talked about, that people really want to do, but is maybe not done as often as people indicate that they'd like to or are willing to do. And I'm just curious, for anyone out there who has an engagement program, do you have any advice if you're getting started or considering getting started on an evaluation? What's it been like for you? What advice might you have for someone undertaking evaluation of their program?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I would say one thing is it really is a close partnership between the program manager and the evaluators, because the evaluators helps you, set up the metrics, and it's more of, like a summative evaluation every time after, one of your events. But for all the formative evaluations, for example, open-ended questions, the program manager, in which case, me here at CAIPAC, I would have to monitor that almost very regularly, making sure that whatever concerns or suggestions that brought up multiple times for a single event, that actually gets addressed for the next one. So it's not like when working with an evaluator, once they have, they manage the metrics, they manage the data, and then they do the synthesis, and we're all good to go. It's not like that.
Yep.
There needs to be like back and forth, because, eventually the evaluators are helping the program getting better, and the implementation is, like essential part of the loop.
Yep. So it's not evaluators coming to tell you if what you're doing is right or wrong, good or bad. It's how to look at what you're doing and be reflective about it and improve. That's great.
Yeah.
What's the most fun part of your job?
I feel that I can immediately see the impact I am making. And for example, this could include from like multiple situations. Like I was continuously participating in an outreach program in Hilo, Hawaii, called Journey Through the Universe. And that was, yes, this picture. So that was actually a week of outreach, going into different classrooms. And those are, underrepresented minority students, mainly Pacific Islanders there.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just see, their faces lit up. And some of them, after the class presentation, they would come to me and say, hey, when are you coming back next time? I really liked your presentation. So, it was those moments that I feel, oh, well, this is what I'm doing, and it is very meaningful. It is actually making a difference. So I treat that as, the best part of my job.
That's great. Okay, well, the flip side, there's obviously a lot of really fun things to do in a job like this. What are some of the challenges?
I would say some of the challenges is there are always more ideas than you could implement. And sometimes it's very hard to let some of the ideas go, because for everything that you actually do and carry out, you want to do it at a very with high quality. And some of those challenges, especially in the implementation phase, is okay, if I'm doing this new thing for the first time, I do not have any baseline data. So we would just like have to go with it according to our best knowledge, which may not be the right assumption, but we just have to start somewhere and then collect feedback and then start the iterating process. Yeah. So every time, running out a new thing, I'm like, okay, I really don't know what to expect. Let's just like cross our fingers that this is at least, something that's acceptable. But, I think as long as we're being mindful and really thoughtful about what we are hoping to achieve, having the goals in mind, everything would at least be starting off of on the right foot, right? It just takes time to, get to a better level.
Yeah. So when you have all these different ideas, how do you pick? How do you decide which ones to focus on and move forward with?
Yes. And this is also where the strategic plan really is useful. Of course, there are ideas that are just fun to do, but it's not like really directly contributing to the overarching goals that we have set for ourselves. So in those cases, we might just treat them as, okay, well, if we have the bandwidth, those are slightly lower priorities. But for those that we identify, actually, there is a current gap, among the programs, and this idea would directly contributing to one of, or maybe multiple of our goals, then of course that receives the highest priority, and we would try to make bandwidth for that. And essentially, like how to carry on or like continue or stop some of the programs, it depends on their alignment with the priorities. It also depends on, our bandwidth. So it's always, hard to just let some of the ideas to sit aside, but they're not being abandoned. We just need to bring them back later.
Yep. So I know that people are always really excited and maybe even a little bit jealous of astrophysics because it seems to be a really engaging topic for the public. When I talk to other scientists who work in other areas, I often hear, gosh, I wish we could be like astrophysics, because people are really excited about astrophysics. What are some elements of astrophysics that you think make it so great to engage the public with? And what are some things that you've worked on that you feel like people are getting really, really excited about and see that excitement around?
Yeah, I would say astronomy is almost like a gateway science, because I feel, the human race, it just has this like intrinsic curiosity towards things that we do not know. And one thing that we always have, like great awe to and curiosity about is the night sky, right? And that is so accessible. I mean, maybe not as accessible in like city settings, but whatever you look up, it's there. It's not like you would have to go into a lab to actually see things that really awe you. So I think that makes astronomy already very accessible. And I could see so many excitement even when we are just doing stargazing nights, which I know, like many other public engagement programs probably also do. But you just never get tired of it. Every time you bring in groups to use the telescopes, so the small ones, the big ones, they're like, wow, I have just never seen a planet or a galaxy like that before. And just thinking that we're being part of this universe, sharing the same space, I think that is at least to me, when I thought about it, I feel it completely changes my perspective, from the vision where I'm only focusing on my work to, oh, well, this is the space I'm actually living in. So it gives you like a more open-ended view, and probably also, brings your peace and calm, hopefully.
I love it. What do you have coming up in the next year or so that you're really excited about? What's something you're really looking forward to working on?
Thank you. Something that's really coming up is the KaiPak Community Day to celebrate our 20th anniversary. So this is almost an astronomy fair we are going to have on the Stanford campus, where there will be multiple hands-on activities, demonstrations, live experiments, and also a mini lecture series going in parallel. So that's going to be, I would say, in 4 weeks, a little bit less than 4 weeks, April 15th, the tax day. So if you're around in the Bay Area, you can check us out. Yeah. And well, make sure that you do your tax first and then check us out. So we can have all the fun there. And aside from this one, we're also planning to do a solar eclipse viewing this October. So that's going to be an exciting time because I think, even for a partial eclipse, it's going to be like pretty obvious, even though it's a little bit early in the morning, 8:30. But we're expecting a really, good crowd to celebrate and join our viewing party.
Great. And Tina, if there's is there a place that people can go that we can put in the chat or on the post to learn more about KaiPak's engagement opportunities? Is there a link that we can share?
Of course. Let me
Okay.
actually put that into the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I think we're about out of time. I feel like there's so much more we can chat about, and we'll check back with the comments. But Xinnan, thank you so much for your leadership there at KaiPak and for leading the engagement program and connecting folks to this really wonderful opportunity. Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me here. Yeah. And lovely to see some of you in person at our upcoming events.
After your taxes are done.
Yes, after your taxes are done.
I love it. Okay, great. Thanks, Xinnan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.